Good evening. This is George Lees, Mr. Lees, as Sheriff Kevin Drummond calls me, and I've had a wee look at some of the factors behind how the local press in my region is organised, and I've already told you that the local press in my region is not local press at all. It's a nationalised company called Johnson Press, and whenever I write to them with any sensational news, they refuse to publish it or even reply, because those news items are crimes in the government sector. Okay, the CEO at Johnson Press is Ashley Highfield. His mission is to get rid of hard copy print runs as quick as he possibly can, and to replace the local paper with an electronic something that you can see the news every evening on your computer and or on the telly, and all of that. I'm not sure, I've not really looked into the ownership of Johnson Press, but I want to tell you a little story about leaders of our country and their links to the local press people. Now, I've been involved in several articles. When I was happily married, I used to get pictures of me with my wife on fishing trips up to the borders, and I was treated almost as a celebrity because I had a professorial title, and I used to catch really big fish, so it got me in the papers quite often, and everybody around me was very proud of that. But when I become a fraud researcher and I want to talk to people in the same pubs where we used to get patted on the back when I'd caught a big salmon that week, then I get taken to the law courts, and my case is described in great detail in a paper called the Southern Reporter, which is run by a woman called Susan Windrum. And let me just show you some of the images. She's taken her image off LinkedIn since I did the research on the companies that she's not directly involved in, but she's very proud of the fact that she is the group editor at Johnson Press, and she works all the way between Alan Beath's constituency in Berwick right up into the Selkirk region where her offices are, and I've been in them multiple times to try and arrange a meeting with the women, because I'm a fraud researcher and I know exactly why the local council are busted for cash, and I know exactly why everyone is in a sovereign debt crisis, and why she wants to get rid of the print run jobs like Rupert Murdoch did in London in the 1980s, I think it was. Okay, now she had a picture up there. I've got 6 mutual connections, and there's a picture of me. I'm quite proud of it. I had no hair then, I had a tash, but I have lost that shirt that I'm wearing on one of our very expensive trips to Britain, which I paid for so that my wife and I could visit our relatives and be genial and happy with all of them. And when I become a fraud researcher, everything changes, and when I get convicted for getting drunk the night my divorce news comes through, it's depicted in the paper word for word, and everything is declared, the swear words are declared. When I mention in the same hearing that I want to plead not guilty, and Sheriff Kevin Drummond overrules that request made by a man called Ross Dow, or I was given the advice by Ross Dow that what was being described in my case was just somebody chatting up a woman in a pub, and that I must plead not guilty. I'll let you look it up. My name is George Lees. You've seen my image, and what was published meant that I got attacked on the riverbank by colleagues of my best man, and I got attacked in the pubs and on the streets of Kelso as being a vicious bastard and why don't I move away. What nobody wants to talk about is the things that I was talking about in the pub, and I have been talking about in 200 openly declared videos with my images in many of them about the fraud that consumes our country. And when I tried to talk about John Anthony Chilcot, the chair of the Arms to Iraq inquiry, and his interlocks with Malcolm Rifkind in the Jedburgh Sheriff Court, this sheriff typically gagged me. That's Drummond. I've got a gagging order about talking to anybody in the Scottish judiciary from that man. I'm seeing him again on Tuesday, and no doubt I will get a lecture for making honest videos where everything is openly declared for public scrutiny. You're not allowed to do that in the law courts, and the reasons for that are obvious. They process the relatively innocent, they bang them up, they fine them hundreds of pounds for doing trivial things, but the Arms to Iraq inquest chair you're not allowed to talk about anywhere. And he's given me a little lecture in the summary that Susan Windrum reported in the Southern Reporter, that if people do not want to hear the story, then that's up to them, but that's not applicable to me. My wife slaps a divorce request on me. I've done nothing wrong in the whole of my life, except on the day that her writ arrived, and that was the day I got drunk, and I'm alleged to have assaulted someone, where an experienced solicitor says what you're doing is just chatting them up. And this is the way that the innocents get treated. The war crimes are massive, and the frauds that I'm reporting on a daily basis are coming out, no matter whether Sheriff Drummond approves of it or not. He's complicit in the cover-ups. The gagging order is explicitly to shield the crimes of the Scottish Government, and the Scottish law officials in the government have been decent enough to recognise that, and when they see that they're aware of the nuclear weapons scandal that is Trident, they have been forced to resign. Drummond is still sitting in judgment on me, and I intend to look him straight in the eye and give him the facts. Everything that they're doing is saying that I am in some way eligible for divorce in Scottish law. None of the team have ever defined any of my behaviours. Okay, let me show you some boards. Susan Windrum is ever so proud of her presence on the Prince's Trust, and I'm really relieved on Susan's behalf that she is not a director at the Scottish end of that. The Prince's Trust is all over the place. They've got links to the Rothschilds, they've got links to the B-Sky B contracts, and the overlaps there are horrendous. Yeah, so this is the Prince that is pictured here. Now, in terms of news releases, we're not allowed to talk or see what his correspondence with politicians and pressmen is. I think he's got a 70-year ban on his communications with politicians or newsmen being published, and that resonates in the reasons behind the sacking of Michael Moore from the British Cabinet. As Scottish Secretary, as Secretary of State for Scotland, he's privy to all of these bloody inquests. That's bloody in a very appropriate sense, because what happened in Iraq killed 2 million bystanders, and it is just for the oil wealth that Tony Blair, pictured there with Prince Charles's dad. That's one of the legitimate children of that man, Prince Philip, who's asset stripping our country as a deliberate policy, and Charlie's mum sees Cameron there on a weekly basis. Cameron's crimes, and even his brother's crimes, he gets legal aid to allow him to be not convicted of £5 million frauds. And Cameron's brother is also a lawyer. Okay, so I'm talking about the judiciary, and I am absolutely hell-bent on getting the news out. I've been to the pub this evening drinking water for reputational reasons, which I now do all of the time. I've never been drunk since I married my wife, until my wife rejected everything that I'm doing in the decency sector. Okay, let me show you what Miss Windrum is doing with the prince. It's very difficult for me to... Youth Business Scotland, Friends and Alumni. Oh, it's not available. Oh, Johnson Press. Nah, the computer's screwed again. Let's just see if we can find another version of a profile. So she's a group editor at Johnson Press. She's working across the Borders region. The Selkirk hub has got also a studio for the BBC, and Selkirk is the home of Alistair Moffat, the person that I've talked about, who's involved in fraudulent stories to talk up the tourist economy. He's a millionaire from BBC Scotland, and is alleged by one of my neighbours to have plagiarised the whole of his book on Scottish history. And I have not got the time to look into the veracity of that, although I found the book that my neighbour referred me to, and I can do it at any time, but that does not bother me. That is the rector at St Andrews University, who teaches the Queen's babies how to be greedy batards like him. Can you see the headlines there? Prince Charles gets a 700,000 pay rise as Duchy of Cornwall earnings hit 19 million. That's only one of their set up companies. And right up here you can see some of the others. The Crown Estate nets 7 billion, 7,000 million, so that is 7 billion. 10 billion for the Royal Collection, 729 millions for the Duchy of Cornwall, and Duchy of Lancaster 383. Now he's got titles and mansions all over the place, and everything that happens is twisted. He's got immunity from any communications with the press, and his involvement with paedophilic scandals with that guy there, who's demonised beyond the grave, that's Jimmy Savile. All of the people involved in these scams now are beginning to approach me and trying to get a decent way out. So even Dave Lee Travis befriended me on Facebook when I said, all you need to do, Dave, is to let them know that you're being persecuted for other people's crimes and theft projects. So the royals in Britain are worth an absolute packet. And what I thought it said on Susan Windrum's profile that I had found there was that she is a proud member of the Scottish wing of the Prince's Trust. But as I say, my computer is ever so unstable. And yeah, not going to play. Right then, so let me find some more Windrums to target in the local region. So she's responsible for news releases all over the Borders, and I should really go and get John Lamonts, my MSP's newsletter. It's pathetic. All they talk about is rubbish collections and holes in the road. Nobody talks about the real big issues for our country. And he's a Better Off Together member. I met him in the pub tonight. He smiled. He genially waved at me, and I waved back genially. Right then, what we got? Yeah, they won't let me open anything that I want to open. This is one of the companies, Susan Windrum. They won't even let me enter something in the text box. I'm gonna have to make this video tomorrow, I reckon. But between Wednesday, when I last looked at these facts and collated them, everything's been taken down. Let me show you the Windrum profile that I got from oh, we can do it this way. I don't need our image. Our image was in the LinkedIn profile a couple of days ago. I can tell you when that was downloaded. It was downloaded on the 12th and it is now the 14th. But what they've done is, when you take a photo shot of something like this, what you don't get now is the images. You drag it, you collect everything, you copy it, but now you cannot get the photographs into the resultant yet. I'm not even hitting any buttons. Okay, can you see that she's involved with the Tweedale Press and Johnson Press, and she's involved, or she was, with the Prince's Trust Youth Business Scotland? Okay, that's previous, and that maybe explains why she's not on the list of directors, although the past directors are usually listed. But because I'm so insightful into the methods, and now what has happened with Company Check is that when you get a list of dates and when the people were involved as directors and when they packed up, it now just becomes a horrible conglomerate of words. I'll show you some of that in a few minutes. And check out the hockey interlocks on the Prince's Trust Youth Business Scotland directory listings to Kenny Matheson Dalgleish. Now, I don't know whether or not they predicted that I was going to look there, but the new Scottish Justice Secretary to replace Kenny McCaskill, who resigned because of the information that Kevin Drummond will not let me get out to his colleagues in the judiciary. That is the Trident scandal. The Justice Secretary in Scotland, as soon as he received my emails, which was this email, oh no, it's going to take ages. I did not realise that Kenny Dalgleish, the soccer player, had interlocks to hockey on the Prince's Trust Youth Business Scotland, and that takes Kenny Dalgleish and Celtic into hockey's interlocking directorates. Susan is not on the board of the Prince's Trust Youth Business Scotland, nor is she on the board of the second registered Prince's Youth Company, which is actually in London, I think. And there's the message that has led to the spates of resignations and the panic attack right through the legal sector, except for the very composed Kevin Drummond, who thinks that he's the Lord in the skies. He sits in judgment and he bangs the table, refuses to engage if you try and say something. You're not allowed to tape anything in the courtroom, but the Southern Reporter is allowed to replay all of the things that you said when you were drunk and you've apologised profusely for, and I get fined, I think it was £350 for that, my bad behaviour, and the reluctance of people in the borders, including the judiciary and all of the Sheriff Court staff, and including the prosecution solicitor, to acknowledge that everything that I am doing is trying to save the funding for Scottish society and global society and the children of the participants in every business, in every street, in everywhere across our country are being robbed at the university. They do not give a monkeys about that as long as their little frauds are undetectable and I'm not allowed to talk about them. Okay, so that's the receipt from the Scottish Police, who do nothing about it. I've got a receipt. They know all about the business register for Trident in London, in Eccleston Square, and it will not make a jot of difference, because there is no way that serious fraud can be brought forward as a crime, because that is how the judiciary, the police leaders, the leading politicians, and all of their overlapping contractors, that's how they thrive, and that's why the poor people have had their pay frozen for 7 years back to back. I'm getting the news out no matter what his nibs says in Jedburgh Sheriff Court. If I have to sit outside that court for a full week with a placard around my neck, I had a placard around my neck when I talked about Chilcot, and when I talked about Rifkind. They completely ignore it. They tell you that you dare not tape your make a recording of it, and then when you get a little Spaniard as a cover up for the legitimate claimant to the English crown, which is also reported in these scams, the straw that broke the camel's back is the reporting of the war crimes jokes and the police sector jokes. That's law enforcement Scotland jokes. I will not go into that. I've done it on multiple videos. Let me show you some of the business interests of these people. So Susan Windrum is relatively innocent. She will not publish any of my letters to the Southern Reporter, so I've stopped sending them. I've asked her for meetings so that I can explain conscientiously what is happening to the Borders funds and why they're having to rob students at universities now. But she cannot find time to meet an innocent man when he's sober. I've been in the office in Selkirk half a dozen times maybe, never get a minute of her time. There's her picture. That's one, and there's another one in higher resolution appended to it. Here we go. Nope. There. So there's the Southern Reporter. There's one of the offices. Yeah, she's had previous with the Scotsman in Edinburgh, and sheriffs are always demanding answers. Yeah, they do not demand answers when the sheriff involved in the sex case is the sheriff that came from the Lothian region. I forget his name, but all over my website his name is actually Lothian. He was alleged to have been living there's Miss Windrum. She's a very genial person, I'm led to believe, but I've never had the privilege of meeting her face to face or having any form of communication. She gets most of my emails, all of them get blocked, and some of our staff are more conscientious. I will not name them in case they lose their jobs, but some of them have begun to start talking to me on the pavements, and they realise the importance of my work, because all of their friends have had that 7-year pay freeze. I doubt that she has had, but that is speculation and I don't do that. Okay, right. So, when you look at the businesses in Gala, you find that there are people called Windrum on the Abbey Field Galashiel Society Limited, run by 6 directors. Let me read them off, the current ones: Alistair Joseph Easton Matthew, George Alistair George Legg, William James Windrum, and William James Windrum, which means that he's both the secretary. Oh look, yeah, I did not touch anything. But we're not allowed to declare it. When they don't want to hear about what they're involved in, you're not allowed to declare it. That's why I was fined £300. And when I offer to take my own camera into the court, even to talk to the clerk at the front desk, they won't allow me to do it. Miss Tom's minutes and all of the correspondence she sent on my bad behaviour have been lost, because they realise now that it is reporting of massive crimes against the people, and it's been lodged as an official document with Jedburgh Sheriff Court. But when I asked Martin the clerk to show me it, he could not find it. Yeah, and that's why they won't let me talk to their colleagues. I have now talked to the Justice Minister, Matheson, like Kenny Dalglish. It's almost as if they're reacting on a daily basis to my investigations online. And that does not surprise me, because the surveillance is intensive. Okay, down below Mr. William James Windrum, we have Mr. William Murray Stewart Tom and Miss Irene Wallace Lindsay Tom. My wife's solicitor is Mrs. or Patricia Tom or Patricia Louise Tom, depending on which business register you're looking at and whether or not you're looking at in any particular time. And we've talked a lot about identity fraud and the havoc that it wreaks. Yeah, and I was talking to someone, a mate of mine in the pub, about his pension fund, and when I said that he had told me that he was on the pension fund, but he openly declared that he does not use his real name on his directorial role. And it's ever so sad that everybody is cheating, and what they're cheating is their own children and mine, which is the reason I'm being divorced, because I cannot get a job because of my honesty. And when I tell people that Lord Sanderson of Bowden asked me to kill things against the law on the River Tweed, where he's a foundation member and he's a commissioner of the River Tweed. He was in charge for 30 years in Mrs. Thatcher's government and beyond for the fish quotas for Britain in the EU. That's how sad it is. That's how cynical it is. So when I get convicted for £350 for putting a sticking plaster on a girl that I was chatting up, and when I found that she was the niece of my best man, I profusely apologised to that best man. He never relayed my apology to her. They're now walking along the pavements with their heads hung, because they know the potency of my research, and they know that trying to stand in the way of an honest man is a very perilous thing to do. Okay, right, I could read you the whole list. I want you to know that the Toms are there. The Toms have been they have been provosts of Melrose, like Alistair Moffat is provost at St Andrews University, and the previous provosts at St Andrews University have included Butcher Haig, and that takes you into the Church of Scotland, British Legion issues, the Duke of Westminster, British Legion issues, the Poppy Fund ownership. Butcher Haig ran that. Okay, it is sad and sick, and when I begin to reveal the war crimes jokes to Jim Fetzer in America, then that freezes the whole of the free press globally, because they know that I'm in a position to explain societal decay all around the globe, and I've worked in both hemispheres, remember, and I'm going to get the news out no matter what it takes. The politicians understand entirely that they have no power to do anything, which is what John Lamont always says to me. I'm only an MSP, George. I cannot change Scotland's future. All you can do is to fiddle with how we collect the rubbish and how we repair the roads, and whether or not everybody is adhering to the proper health and safety rules, which is why we have no longer have an abattoir within 150 miles of the borders. Yeah, it's been shut down. All of them have been shut down in my lifetime by a man with a clipboard who thinks he's really important but is being paid to dismember society. Okay, this is the website for Abbeyfield Galashiels Society Limited, yeah, and I could go right to the bottom because there's Mackay's on it, and you know all about Law Enforcement Scotland and the Mackay of Clash Fern jokes that go into the Mackay of the porridge comedies, and we take it back to the two Ronnies again. Ronnie Balfour Corbett, remember I mentioned him last night because he's a dead ringer for the Austrian Cardinal that was laundering Nazis and was involved in the Nazi genocides in World War II, along with Pope Pius XII. Okay, and there's nothing really sinister. Those are familiar names to me. I know the Dorwards were provosts in Galashiels, and some of it's just the familiarity of the names and the interlocks with the power brokers in the cabals. The dates for the Toms are nothing like Miss Patricia Tom, but everywhere you go you get these overlaps, and then when you look at the directors and what the previous directors were, it takes you into other realms and other regions. Previous directors and secretaries, there's a Brodie, and John Lamonts used to work at Brodie's, the solicitors. There's a Barker, and we've talked about the two Ronnies. And you remember that these links can be globalized. A couple of links down the interlocking chain and we could be in Bermuda, which is why I want to show you the website for the company that is Abbeyfield Limited, in brackets, so it's difficult to detect it. But here is the website, and guess what? It's got thousands of houses for sale and for rental. Oh God. Okay, Abbeyfield Galashiels. Can you see that?
Hiya, John. The wait's over. We found you a donor.
Abbeyfield Galashiels Society Limited. Okay, it's actually in Aberdeen. When you click on it, click on our website, visit our website, okay, you get into Aberdeen. Aberdeen supported housing project, and when you click and look how many houses they've got, Abbeyfield Galashiels Society Limited, 37685. And this has got similar parallels with the Chambers of Commerce and the big cabals involving the director at the the president at the British Legion, Alistair Hatton. Their interlocks to the Chambers of Commerce are in Glasgow. That's where the registration is for the borders, talk up the business sector world. And these are all about care homes for the elderly. The care homes for the elderly were run by the public authorities, the local council, the district council, and everything was blessedly free on the NHS, on the council budgets. Now everything's privatised, and it is really, really sad. Okay, but let me show you a little bit more about who's on the Prince. Oh shit, look, they've done it again. Oh snap. The Prince's Youth Business Trust, we're not allowed to see it. And there's Miss Windham. It's nothing to do with her, she's not a director on it. I was really relieved when I saw that. She's working for it in the belief, like my children, that working for charities and trusts is doing somebody some good. It does the Prince a lot of good, and it does the Queen's Equerry a lot of good. It does not do the victims of the illness or the poverty in Africa any good at all. It is just a tuck it away in the elite pockets project, like the Nazi gold, which I wanted to talk to ambulance men in the pub about the laundering through the ambulance sector and the Red Cross, which I experienced in New Zealand when they had the tsunami on the coast of Asia in 2005 and in the South Pacific. When I went to see the home that we eventually bought, run by a Red Cross official, it was filled with African treasures, and I mean treasures. Yeah, the whole of our upstairs room, it was massive. I've got the whole of my library in it. We had a table tennis chair in it. We had a weight machine for bodybuilding. And that's incredible that you're talking to this obese man, but that was what happened when we went to the Red Cross man's house. And when I went to Switzerland and I visited the German boss at Siebergeige, his house was full of fine art. In Switzerland, German, executive in the pharma industry, which is why I'm frustrated that the Prince's Trust have shut me down. Oh snap, something went wrong while displaying this web page. To continue, reload or go to another page. So while we're waiting, let's talk about something else. No, it's not going to give us it. William James Windrum, Pike and Chapman. So that's the Galashiels Windrum. I could show you that. Relatively innocent. There's nothing much about this, but it's about the power base. It's about the interlocking. Miss Tom, that is my wife's solicitor, used to be the solicitor for the Scottish Borders Council. They will not let me talk to them. They will not let me post on their site. I cannot post at all or even comment on anybody else's post on the Southern Reporter's web page. Same at Radio Borders. The rugby commentator is alleged to be the voice of the Borders. He shut me down. No one will talk to me about the reasons that the Borders economy is crippled. And it is really sad that the world's most informed person is not allowed to play any role in local politics or even exposure of why their local politicians have no funding. And it's simple to fix. It just needs awareness. And I know that the Borders people are very spirited. They should be rising up in protest that their pay has been frozen. But all of the princes, you saw the statistics on his Cornish holdings and his £700,000 a year pay rise. Yeah, he gags everybody he talks to. And these lot, oh, here we go. No, that's not the Prince's Trust. Oh no, here we go. Right, so the Prince's Trust. Now, this is, loads of the names are relatively anonymous. Quite a lot of them are foreign. And I've mentioned the Bint woman, who's in East Sussex or West Sussex, and she is one of 150 wives of the Saudi or the Dubai prince, who trades in her Ponzi shelves in the very deep south of England. So some of these could be elites, but we've got Mr. John Ralph Sidney Guinness, we've got Michael John Dawson. Now John Dawson used to be the head of the Kelso Chronicle, but I doubt that's him. He's been very ill since I came back from New Zealand. And we've got Robert Woodhouses, nothing sensational at the top of the list. Sarah Eaton, here we go. Sir Brian Gordon Wolfson. Remember in the videos about NHS fraud, I talked about the Wolfson boss and the head of the Wolfson Foundation running a profiteering scam on a thing called a polypill. You bond 4 or 5 different medicines into the same pill and the patient pops it. There's no versatility in the regimen and the patient gets very ill indeed. The Sir Brian or the Wolfsons involved in that side of the scam make vast profits, and all of that is condoned by the Drugs Commissioners and the NHS. Sir Christopher George Francis Harding, Sir Geoffrey Holland, Sir John Edward Victor Rose, Sir Robert Paul Reid, Sir Thomas Andrew Shabir. Now that is not the Reid who's the director at Celtic. Sir William Martin Castell, the Right Honourable Brenda Dean of Thornton le Fylde, Right Honourable Lord John George Shepherd, and back to Pharma and links to the monarchy. Remember the name Ogilvy? Up through the Braemar sector and into Pharma, the Glaxo Group, all of the Wellcome subsidiaries that are still used as Ponzi shells years after I used to work for them, and the company was alleged to have gone down the pan. I mentioned how our pension funds were asset stripped by the advisors, so when I got my pension from Wellcome, or they declared what it would be, we did not know what to do with it because we were in redundancy phases. So we got the advice, and when I got the advice from an advisor in the North London area, it cost me 40% of the money I had set aside in that fund. I only realised that this year. Okay, everything they will do, they will scam you with it. And that is happening again in my divorce case, because they've taken the date of separation back from when it occurred on June the 4th of this year to August of 2011. It is cynical, twisted, and I'm going to bust it. Yeah, if I have to sit selling the big issue outside Jedburgh Sheriff Court, I will. Right. And there's a long list of previous directors, but I don't think I found Hockey. Is definitely on it. Heyday, Guinness, Minpress, Anderson, Woodhouse, Thomas, Wolfson. Crikey Moses. Let's see what I've got on my OneNote. Hockey. And this is the other trick they've pulled in the last month, since the Trident scandal came and hit them right on the chin. No longer can I reproduce from Company Check a list of coherent dates or coherent directors or coherent secretaries. It's now just a jumble of words, and that is since they crashed my computers in those videos that I made the other day. Just on it's today, Saturday, I think it was on Thursday of this week, they crashed the computers. Everything that I've done that happened on those 2 days has been recorded in videos, but no longer can I paste the facts and the timelines for the directors and the thin blue lines and the things that we become so familiar with. Yeah, interlocks to Kenny, Matheson, Dalgleish. I don't know how I can prove that now, but William Hockey, 90224 900122204, and that takes you. I was quite stunned to see Celtic, the Lisbon Lions, and the Prince's Trust, or the Scottish subsidiary that we've been talking about, because they're all over the place. I mentioned the World Wildlife Fund. The British version of that is bigger than anything else, and even the Global Fund. It is ever so twisted, and the usual suspects participate in all of it. There we go. Let's see if we can find just evidence that what I'm telling you. So if you go to that Company Check site, companycheck.co.uk/director 900122204/William-Hockey/director secretaries, then you'll get a list of his interlocking directors at hundreds of companies. Now the Hockeys are the people that crashed the Irish economy a couple of times in the last decade. One of them died in a helicopter crash in the vast tracts of land that is the Norfolk Estates, and it could even have been this guy. He's registered at 141 Brownside Road, Cambuslang, Glasgow, Scotland, and his list is immense. city refrigeration, and I could look for, what were we looking for? We're looking for Dalgleish. Mr. Kenny Matheson Dalgleish, registered with the Celtic Football and Athletic Company Limited, but the Lisbon Lions are on here, and oh, the interlocks are amazing. And this is just one director. Let's see what the statistics are for him. I know you don't get it in that type of listing. If I went back to summary for him, we would see it's getting very late. It's 20 to 2 in the morning. Sunday morning. I'm working on the Sabbath. Isn't that terrible? Please look at the video I made with Jim Fetzer about the religious fraud, the war crimes jokes, and all of the stealing from British students. That is the stuff that will break the camel's back. They are entirely ashamed of it. Even these criminals that have been at it for decades. There's the Celtic Football and Athletic Club, and this is, remember, an interlock with the Prince's Trust. And we've got Osprey Taverns, Celtic PLC, Greenlees Hill, Edendale. There we go. So the Prince's Trust youth business, I don't know why I could not find hockey on that, and I was quite stunned when I saw the number of people that he interlocks with. Let's see if I can find it again, a summary of that. There we go. There's the Prince's Youth Business Trust, 18 Park Square, East London. But the directors that we're looking at now, including hockey, are the Prince's Trust Youth Business Scotland, and hockey takes you from the Prince's Trust into Glasgow Celtic, into the Lisbon Lions, and hundreds of other highly influential boardrooms. Okay, what have we got on this? There's a listing of it. The Guinness, I kind of see why I cannot see him again now that we've had it listed and confirmed. Hockey does not appear to be there. But that previous listing for him and his interlocks does confirm that he was, or maybe it's just that he's dropped out, and that's what I have to do now. Instead of just being able to copy from the Company Check website, I have to screen capture all of the lists and all of the thick blue lines and all of the thin blue lines. When I copy and paste that now, it just crashes into a bundle of text. So they're doing everything they can to fuck me up as a homeowner, as a contentedly married person who's treated his family with six-figure savings at the bank for decades. He's insured his wife in life insurance schemes when his wife did not have the right to a widow's pension, because that was not part of the thing that they stole 40% of. That's why I took life cover on me, so that if anything happened to me, my wife would not get a widow's pension. What she's taking now is half of the pension, because our solicitor, Miss Tom, is an entrepreneur, and because they've just made a declaration that the most innocent person in Scotland, who's published 200 videos on war crimes, genocide and the religious fraud that has everybody on the verge of demonising Islam so that we can take the world to war again. The videos I made last night archiving the life of Greg Hallett and the leadership teams and their absolutely evil behaviours, their genocidal behaviours. Yeah, it is just randomised killing to optimise your profits and your guilt burden, but then to get rid of that you have to have paedophile victims or another war, and it just rolls and rolls and rolls. And what happens is that the cannabis users get banged up, but the Prime Minister gets to give legal aid to his brother on a 5 million fraud. Yeah, and I'm gonna go for their jugular, and I don't know whether or not Kevin Drummond looks at any of the YouTube videos, but the Justice Minister in Scotland is now aware of all of the facts of the cover-up using Arnott Manderson, of all of that nonsense on the child murder of Moira Anderson, and the jokes that take you into the two Ronnies, the jokes that the two Ronnies share with Colditz, where the elites on both sides were hosted with their personal manservant, the Batman joke. It is absolutely ruthless. They get paid millions and millions of pounds. The NHS is being asset stripped by the Forbes rich list leaders, and everybody in the NHS, in the council sector, in the teaching sector, have had their pay frozen for 7 years back to back, and I'm the only one who gives a fuck about it. Now that would have been published in the Southern Reporter had I said it on the pub the night that my divorce writ popped into my door, and when I refused to talk about it because I'm completely innocent, they banged me into the courtroom, which I've already declared is illegitimate, as is the Christian oath, and they underestimate me. If you do not hear from me again, then weedy little Sheriff Drummond has had me arrested, and I'm in Saughton getting HIV from some of the other inmates so that they can silence me for good. Night night.